Jesus's, little Christ walking around doing the work of God. And that is exactly what Compassion International has decided to do. I believe whenever there is a need in the world, that Christians rush to it. Whenever there's tornadoes in Joplin, Missouri, Christians rush to it to help. If there's tornadoes in Alabama, Christians rush to help. When there's tsunamis in Japan, Christians rush to help. Whenever there's tsunamis in Indonesia, Christians rush to help. When there's earthquakes in Haiti, Christians rush to help. When there's somebody in your neighborhood that needs groceries, Christians rush to help. When there's somebody that's dying of hunger, when there's somebody in Africa in a village and they're using the same water source to drink out of, to use the bathroom, to clean their clothes, all in the same dirty water, Christians rush to help and dig wells and make sure that those people have clean water. That's what we do. Jesus said two things for us: to love God with all of our heart, soul, mind, and strength. And the second, to love our neighbor as ourselves. And I want to get into what it means to love our neighbor as ourselves, but just a minute. Before I do that, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about this organization called Compassion International. How many people have ever heard of Compassion International? Let me see you guys. Awesome, wonderful. Compassion does some things that are amazing, and I just want to make sure we're all on the same page before I start talking about it. Can we all agree today that it's not a child's responsibility to feed themselves? Can we all agree with that? Everybody, hey, can we all agree with that? Can we agree that it's not a child's responsibility to clothe themselves? Everybody agree with that? Can we agree that it's not a child's responsibility to take themselves to the doctor? Can we agree with that? And it's not a child's responsibility to educate themselves. Can we all agree with that today? It's also not a child's responsibility to tell themselves about Jesus. It's actually quite impossible. Children need someone to tell them. Children need someone to help them. Children need someone to clothe them, to feed them, to educate them, to take them to the doctor, to not only help their physical needs, but to touch their spiritual needs. And that is exactly what Compassion International does. It's a sponsorship program, and I'm holding up a little girl here today. Her name is Maria, and she's from Central America. Maria lives in an impoverished area. And Compassion goes in 42 different countries, and they find children that are living in poverty, and they try to help them. They help them do four things. Number one, Maria, they're going to make sure that she has enough food to eat. Number two, they're going to make sure that she has enough clothes. Number three, or actually that's number 1A and 1B. Number two, they're going to make sure that she has access to medicine. I've seen it myself, and I'll get into that in just a minute. And number three, they're going to make sure that they have an education. And number four, the most important one, is that they make sure that Maria hears the gospel of Jesus Christ. I sponsor a child in Indonesia. I had the opportunity to travel to Indonesia a couple years ago with my wife. It's all the way on the other side of the planet, right next to Australia. And when I went there, I didn't know what to expect. And I got to meet my Compassion child, and it was one of the most amazing things I've ever had happen. I mean, I was sponsoring him for a few years before I met him, and as soon as I saw him, you know, we've been sending letters back and forth and pictures back and forth. As soon as I saw him, I knew him. As soon as he saw me, he knew me, because we already had this relationship, you know, run to each other, hug each other, and met his family and hugged them. And they just came up to me and my wife, and they were saying these words. They said, you know, thank you for what you've done for our family. Because of your sponsorship, our family will never be the same. And today I want to tell you a story about a guy I met in Indonesia. His name was Erlan. And Erlan is a grown man, and he said, everybody kept telling me, hey, you got to talk to Erlan. He's got the most amazing story. I was like, okay, cool. I was like, Erlan, everybody says you've got an amazing story. Tell me about it. He said, okay, sure. He said, I used to be a little child on the front cover of one of those packets. I was like, really? Dude, tell me about it. I said, I've never met anybody that's a grown-up, that's a grown man, an adult that used to be in the Compassion program. Tell me about it. He said, okay. He said, me, my brother, my cousin, we all got into the Compassion program all at the same time. He said, my brother was sponsored almost a month after he got in the Compassion program. He said, my cousin was sponsored about 3 months after he got in the Compassion program. He said, me, I waited a whole year and never got sponsored. I was like, oh man, that stinks. He said, yeah, it broke my heart. He said, as a little child, 5, 6 years old, he said, I began to wonder, is there something wrong with me? I began to wonder, because he said, his picture's on this little packet, just like this right here. He said, I began to wonder, am I not cute enough? Was my brother cuter than me? Is my cousin cuter than me? Because you know how we Americans are. We'll walk up to that compassion table. There's all these kids all laying there, and we'll look at one. We'll go, "Oh man, he is so cute. I gotta just watch a Dalvin. I'm gonna go get him." You know what I mean? And Erlon, that's what he was saying. Maybe that's not me. Maybe, and he used all these other adjectives that I won't say what he said. Of, maybe I'm not ugly, maybe I'm not pretty enough, maybe I'm this or that. And man, me and my wife were crying, bawling as he was telling this. My wife was crying because like a girl, because she is a girl. I was crying like a girl, and I have no excuse. I'm not one. I just have no excuse. But I was just bawling like a little girl. And he said, but 2 years later, I got sponsored for a month by somebody. And he said, and then that went away. And then a little bit later, I got sponsored again about 3 months. For 3 months by somebody, and he said that went away. And he goes, man, my heart just kept aching and wondering, what is wrong with me? Why won't someone sponsor me? And then he said, after that, there was a couple that sponsored him. And they began to write him letters. And he received those letters, and it was like his most treasured possession. They sent him pictures. And they sent in this one letter, and it said this. It said, Erlon, we want you to know that we have put your picture up on our refrigerator, and every day we pass it, we say a prayer for you. We want you to know that we think you're the most beautiful, handsome young boy we've ever seen in our entire life, and we are so honored to be a part of your life. He said, man, they kept sending me letters like this over and over, and it just changed my self-image. I started having self-confidence. I was this broken little boy that was just asking myself, am I even worth it? Am I cute? Am I not cute at this? They just broke all those barriers down. He said, I began to go to church at the Compassion Project and listen to what they had to say about Jesus. He said, and soon after I started receiving those letters, I accepted Jesus Christ into my life. And man, me and my wife were just sitting there, just tears rushing down our face, and I just grabbed him and I said, Erlon, I'm gonna go around the United States of America and I'm gonna tell people your story. I'm gonna tell them what it means for this person is a real person with a real heart and real emotions, just waiting for somebody to sponsor them. And I'm going to tell the world, I'm going to tell the nation of America what it means for you and for these children to actually be sponsored by somebody. I gave, just a couple nights ago, I was telling the compassion representative here, I said, man, I gave the most awesome compassion speech ever 2 nights ago. I walked off the stage and I was like, man, that was the greatest compassion speech I've ever given. I'm just going to go sponsor 17 children myself, I felt so good about it. You know what I mean? I was like, oh, that was good. I was talking really good. And literally, I went back and I was just like, in anticipation, I was like, oh man, I know we just had like 300 kids sponsored tonight or something. I walked back to the table, I was like, how many kids did we get sponsored? They go, well, we didn't have any sponsored tonight. I was like, really? And so then last night, I walked up on stage and I go, I gave the best speech last night I've ever given, so tonight I'm going to give the worst speech ever that you've ever heard through compassion, and that way we might get some sponsored. And we actually had a whole bunch of compassion kids sponsored last night, so hopefully I'm doing a horrible job today that we can get a whole bunch of kids sponsored, because let me tell you something about it. I wish I could tell you that if you sponsor this child, you're going to go to heaven. I can't tell you that. I'm not going to say that you will or you won't go to heaven, because salvation is a gift. But what I can tell you is this, that if you sponsor this child has a good chance to go to heaven. You know why? Here's the statistics. Last year alone, over 150,000 children in Compassion's ministry gave their life to Jesus Christ because of what Compassion was doing in their life. Over 150,000! Is that not amazing? Over 150,000! Now here's where I'm going with that. That's what we do. That's what Christians do. When was the last time you led somebody to Jesus Christ? When was the last time you witnessed to somebody? When was the last time you brought somebody in the family of God? Hey, here's your chance today. When was the last time you reached out and helped somebody that needed help? Here's your chance today. Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself. Somebody was standing by, they go, well, what's that mean to love my neighbor as myself, Jesus? And he said, I'll tell you. He said, once there was a man, he was beaten up by a group of thieves. They stripped him up of all of his clothes, took all of his money, and they left him in a ditch to die. He said this religious person walked by and was like, oh man, that really stinks. You're dying. Well, I've got to go to church. Okay, we'll see you later. Said another one walked by and did the same thing. Then he said this hated guy, this Samaritan guy, he was hated by everybody. He said he walked by and saw this naked guy left in a ditch. Had compassion on him. Picked him up out of the ditch, bandaged up his wounds, put him on his horse or his donkey and took him to the nearest hotel. And he went up to the guy that ran the hotel and he said this. He said, look, I found this guy left for dead and I bandaged him up and I saved his life. He said, look, but I've got to go. I've got somewhere I've got to be, so I want you to do me a favor, okay? I want you to put this guy in the hotel and I want you to take care of him here. And as long as it takes, I want you to take care of him. Until he gets better, I want you to let him stay here and send me the bill. However long it takes for him to get better, let him stay here and send me the bill. I'll pay all of his expenses. Whatever it takes, send me the bill. Jesus said, that is what it means to love your neighbor as yourself. Have you ever asked the question, what does it mean? That's what it means. See, I can't be in Nicaragua here where Maria is. And I can't be in Indonesia where my child that I sponsor, his name is Indrian. I can't be where Indrian is in Indonesia right now. But compassion is there. And my relationship with compassion goes like this. I say, compassion, I can't put clothes on Indrian's back today, but you can. Will you do it? Send me the bill. I'll pay for it. I can't be there to feed him, but you can. Will you do it? Send me the bill. I'll pay for it. I can't be there to take him to the doctor every 3 months like they do to check up on him, make sure everything's going okay. I can't do that, but you can do it. Will you do that and send me the bill? I can't give him an education, you do that. I can't tell him about Jesus, most important of all. I can't tell him that there's a God that loves him face to face and give him that opportunity to accept Jesus Christ into his life. But you can do that. Will you do that? And whatever it costs, send me the bill. That's my relationship with them. And today I want to encourage you to do the exact same thing. You can make a difference. You can save a life. You can not only make sure this child has food, clothing, medicine, and education, but you can guarantee that they will hear the gospel of Jesus Christ, and more importantly, that they will probably accept him in their life. When I went to a compassion project, I walked in, first thing I saw up on the wall was a dry erase board that showed how many children had given their life to Jesus Christ that month. That is what they're all about. If you want to sponsor a compassion child, all you have to do is this. On the back of this form here, you just fill it out and you just say what your name is, your address, and how you'd like to pay. I pay with a credit card. That way I don't have to worry about sending a bill every month. You just write down your credit card right there, and that's how you do it. If you say, I don't have enough money today, but I really want to do this, you just mark this little box that says pay later, and we'll do it that way. Where's my compassion volunteers? Compassion volunteers, go ahead and just start walking out there. If you're here today, I want you to do me a great favor, a huge favor. I want to challenge you. It's $38 a month. $38 a month to sponsor a compassion child. If you do the math, I'm okay at math. I'm not that great at it. But if you do the math, it's just a little bit more than $1 a day. That much, just that little. When I was in Indonesia, I was talking to my child's mentor. And I was like, how do you do so much with just $38 a month? How do you do this? How do you give him these clothes? And how do you take him to the doctor and pay for all these things with just $38 a month? How do you do that? She said something back to me that I'll never forget. She said, to you, that seems like just a little bit. But to us, that is a whole lot. And we can do a whole lot with what you call a little. Today, will you give a little so that compassion can do a whole lot? If you're interested in sponsoring a child today, will you do me a huge favor? will you just stand to your feet right now? If you're interested in sponsoring a Compassion Child, I just want you to stand up to your feet right now, right where you're at. They're going to bring you a Compassion packet, all right? If you're interested in sponsoring a Compassion Child, come on, man. Yeah, thank you, man. Right over there. Take him one right over there. Come on, put your hands together for him right now. Put your hands together for him. Anybody else? Just say, I'm ready. I want to do that. I want to sponsor a Compassion Child. Just stand to your feet right back there. Right back there. Run to her. Run to her. Anybody else? Just stand to your feet right where you're at. Say, I want